Hello. On today's Jazz Forms video, we're going to be talking about rhythm changes, what they are, why they're such an important part of learning jazz music, and 5 variations we can use on this important chord progression. Let's get into it. To begin, we have to answer an obvious but important question, which is, what are rhythm changes? Rhythm changes refers to any song based on the chord progression to George Gershwin's I've Got Rhythm. It's the second most common form in all of jazz music after the 12-bar blues, and many great jazz composers have written many jazz standards based on this chord progression, including Duke Ellington's Cottontail, Charlie Parker's Anthropology, or Miles Davis's The Theme. Because of the ubiquitousness of this form, it has played a pivotal role in the development of jazz language. Rhythm changes is a 32-measure AABA form, but in this video, we'll only be discussing the A section, and I'll be leaving the B section for another video. So to begin with, I'd like to discuss what I consider to be the most basic version of the rhythm changes form. This is what you'll most likely be playing if you're playing the actual song, I've Got Rhythm. What you'll notice is the most prominent element of this form is a repeating 1, 6, 2, 5 chord progression. What I'd like to point out about this chord progression is it has a certain tonal gravity, with each chord leading to the next on a path back to our 1 chord. This tonal gravity is going to be an important element of future versions of this chord progression as we experiment with more colorful and varied reharmonizations to yield a similar result. In the 5th measure, we get to our 1 dominant chord, 4, 4 minor, and then 1, 5, 1. An important thing to mention is if you're playing the actual song, I've Got Rhythm, there is a 2-measure extension in the last A section. Some people feel very strongly that that extension should stay in every single chorus, including the solos, and other people not so much. So I suggest if you're playing this song with a band that you have a short discussion ahead of time to determine if you want to keep that 2-measure extension in during every single chorus. Here's an example melody and improvisation based on this form. I hope you're enjoying this video on rhythm changes. I just really quickly wanted to say that if you're interested in any of the contents of today's video, they are available for purchase on my website, link in the description below. There you can also find all of the other materials from my previous videos on jazz improvisation, as well as a contact form if you're interested in privately studying jazz trumpet, composition, or improvisation. Thank you very much. I'd like to continue on with what I consider to be the most common bebop variation on the rhythm changes form. This is what you'll most likely be using over songs like Anthropology, The Theme, or Oleo, and what you'll most likely be using if you're playing a rhythm changes song on a jam session. Right away, what you'll notice is that our 6th chord in the 1st measure has been replaced by a dominant chord on the same root, or what we'll be calling the 5 of 2. This helps to increase that feeling of tonal gravity by urging us a little stronger to move to our 2 chord in the 2nd measure. In the 3rd measure, we've replaced our 1 chord with a 3 chord. The 3 chord in this case has a similar functioning and feeling to our 1 chord, but is removing some of the redundancy of always coming back to the 1 chord every time. Then we have 3, 5 of 2, 2, 5, 1, right? Then continue on normally until we've replaced our 4 minor chord with a passing diminished chord here. And then our first ending, 3, 5 of 2, 2, 5, 1 back to the top. In the second ending, we just have a 2, 5, 1. Here is a sample melody and improvisation using this form. Let's continue with what I'll be calling the ascending bassline rhythm changes variation. What you should notice right away is that the first 2 measures feature a chromatically ascending bass line using diminished chords, leading us to our 3 chord in the 3rd measure. Something I'd like to mention about these diminished chords is if you take that first B diminished chord and add the G down below, what you'll notice is that this now looks like a G7 flat 9 chord, meaning that its harmonic function is very similar to that of a G7. As we continue on, we have our 3, 6, 2, 5 as before, but then in the 5th measure, if we think of that B flat 7 as a 5 of 4, then we can precede it with its related 2 chord. So now we have a 2, 5 to our 4 chord in the 6th measure. And then we continue on as normal for the rest of this version of the form. This is a sample melody and improvisation over this version of the rhythm changes form. This next rhythm changes form is what is commonly known as the descending bassline variation, or the chord progression to Jimmy Heath's CTA. What you'll notice about this form is it features a cycle of descending dominant chords, going from our 1, flat 7, flat 6 to 5. This then repeats, as we did with our 1, 6, 2, 5 in the past. What you'll notice about this cycle is that it introduces a lot of modal interchange, borrowing from the key of the parallel minor, which gives us a lot of color that we haven't necessarily seen in previous versions of the rhythm changes form. We continue on from there as previous with our 2, 5 to our 4, but our 4 minor chord has been replaced by a flat 7, 7, which shares common harmonic relationships with our 4 minor chord. Everything else is as usual. Here is a sample melody and improvisation using this variation on the rhythm changes form. For our 5th and final rhythm changes variation, this is what's commonly known as the cycle. This is a technique that's commonly employed by advanced jazz improvisers when they're soloing over any rhythm changes form. And for that reason, makes it important for comping instruments to learn to recognize when a soloist is using this so that they can adapt in the moment. What it is essentially a string of dominant chords going from 5 to 1 over and over again until we finally arrive at our true 1 chord in the 5th measure. We spoke previously about that feeling of tonal gravity as everything is kind of leading us back to one with all of our different chord progressions that we're using in these rhythm changes songs. Well, this is kind of, in my mind, taking that concept to its furthest point as we're just going from 5 to 1 over and over again until we get to that true 1 chord in the 5th measure. Everything else in this form is largely the same as what we've seen previously. This is a sample melody and improvisation using the cycle. So now that we've explored all these different variations on rhythm changes, I want to ask a question, which is, why is it so important for us to learn rhythm changes? Well, since it's such a common element of the jazz lexicon, it is really important for us to understand it if we're going to learn the jazz common language, as well as to understand the basic motions of jazz harmony. I hope that we can take a lot of these elements and concepts that we've discussed in talking about rhythm changes and learn to apply them on not just jazz standards, but also on our own music that we can compose and perform. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something about rhythm changes and the variations that we can use over it. Again, if you're interested in any of the materials from today's video, they are available for purchase on my website, link in the description below, as well as forums if you want to get in touch with me for private lessons or anything like that. The remainder of this video is the backing tracks for all of these forms that we've been using. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you're interested in this content, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, 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 1, 2, 3, 4.